You ever watch someone destroy their own life in real time? That's what I witnessed the morning our HOA president called 911 on my wife. The cop opened one of our storage containers, froze, and then he actually saluted, right there in our driveway in front of half the neighborhood. That was the moment I knew Grace Perez, the all-powerful queen of Pine Ridge HOA, was finished. But believe me, it took a lot of chaos to get there. Act 1. The Spark. I'm Logan. My wife Julie and I had just bought a small cabin in Pine Ridge, one of those communities where the grass height is regulated, the mailboxes all look the same, and the HOA writes more rules than the federal government. We wanted peace, a getaway from the city grind. Instead, the second we pulled in with our moving truck, curtains started twitching. You could feel the stairs like we were rolling into a parade no one asked for. Julie, being the machine she is, hopped out and started unloading these heavy military-style containers. Not flimsy cardboard boxes, these were government-issue airtight, built like tanks. She handled them like they were pillows, muscles moving with a calm efficiency that only comes from years of training. That's when Grace Perez made her entrance. Picture 5'2" power suit clutching the HOA binder like it's the Constitution. She marched across our driveway like she owned the land beneath her heels. Her voice could have shattered glass. You can't move those items without a permit. Julie didn't even flinch. She kept setting the box down, not a word, like Grace was a mosquito buzzing in her ear. That silence, it crushed Grace harder than any insult. Neighbors started drifting over. Phones came out. David Brooks, the poor guy from down the street, was filming because Grace told him to. He looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. And then Grace snapped. Her hands were shaking, her face red, her voice climbing higher and higher. I'm calling the police about suspicious military containers and a refusal to comply with security protocols. The crowd leaned in. Nobody wanted to step in, but everyone wanted a front row seat. Act 2. Escalation and the twist. Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Mitchell. Tall, tired eyes, the kind of guy who's seen too much neighborhood drama. Grace lit up like Christmas. "Thank God you're here, officer," she shrieked, pointing at our boxes like they were ticking bombs. Mitchell listened, patient but skeptical. Julia handed over her ID calmly. No nerves, no excuses. He walked back to his cruiser, ran her information, and then I saw it happen. The recognition, the shift. He came back, looked my wife dead in the eye, and said quietly, "Ma'am, thank you for your service." The air went electric. Grace's jaw dropped. Neighbors whispered, "Did she just accuse a decorated veteran of being dangerous?" I thought that humiliation might stop her, but Grace wasn't built that way. She doubled down. 3 days later, she called an emergency HOA meeting. The community center was packed. Grace had a PowerPoint with titles like "Unvetted Military Personnel in Civilian Communities." I swear it looked like she'd downloaded photos from Google and glued together a conspiracy theory. Her expert witness. Her brother-in-law, Tom, who sold used cars. He babbled about classified missions until a neighbor called out, "Didn't I buy a Honda from you last month?" The room erupted in laughter. Then Officer Mitchell stood up. Calm, steady voice. "I've responded to 12 false complaints from this address in 6 months. The only threat I've seen is harassment against law-abiding residents." Grace's face turned crimson. She started screaming about military conspiracies and domestic sleeper agents. That was the night her power cracked. But still she didn't quit. Instead, she pulled out her sharpest weapon, blackmail. Secrets and fear. It started with David Brooks showing up at our door, pale and shaking. He admitted Grace had been blackmailing him with custody violation footage, him picking up his kids 30 minutes early from soccer. Nothing sinister, but in the middle of a bitter divorce, that video could have wrecked his rights. "She's been holding this over me for 8 months, he whispered. "Every time I wanted to speak up, she reminded me she could ruin me." And it wasn't just him. Grace had files on everyone: illegal daycare, unpermitted decks, kids playing where they shouldn't. She built her empire on fear. That's when my doubt hit. I remember lying awake that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, what if she wins? What if the neighborhood turns on us? Maybe we should have stayed quiet, kept our heads down. For the first time I felt powerless, like we'd walked into a war we couldn't win. Julie rolled over, grabbed my hand, and whispered, "Logan, she won't stop. People like Grace never stop until they destroy everything. We fight, or we lose it all." That was my turning point. The fear burned off and something sharper took its place: resolve. Building the case. We set up hidden cameras, logged every incident, and worked with David to record his conversations with Grace. The plan was simple: catch her red-handed gather proof and expose her before she could frame us. And then we learned just how desperate she was. Grace had received her final foreclosure notice. $47,000 due in 3 days, or lose her house. Her mind snapped. She showed David a duffel bag filled with fireworks ammunition, even what looked like narcotics. She bragged about planting it all in our shed to prove we were dangerous military extremists. That's when we knew this wasn't just HOA harassment anymore. This was a full-blown criminal act waiting to happen. Act 3. The fall. It was past midnight when our security cameras caught her. Grace, dressed head to toe in black, creeping across our yard with the duffel bag. She muttered to herself the whole time, "Let's see how smart they are when the feds show up." She picked the lock on our shed, started arranging fireworks like explosives, sliding bags of powder behind our containers, snapping photos as if she was a detective. What she didn't realize, every second was being recorded in high definition from 3 different angles, audio included. David, watching from his window, called Officer Mitchell. His voice was steady now, no longer the trembling neighbor Grace had controlled. "This is David Brooks at 427 Pine Ridge Drive. I'm witnessing Grace Perez breaking into the Reed family shed and planting illegal substances. Right now." 4 minutes later, Mitchell's cruiser rolled in, lights flashing but no sirens. Julie had the footage queued on a tablet. He watched for 30 seconds, nodded grimly, and walked to the shed. Flashlight beam cut across the dark. His voice was calm, sharp. "Ma'am, step out with your hands visible." Grace froze, caught mid-act, still holding a bag of powder. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Half disbelief, half feral panic, like a cornered animal. She tried. "This isn't what it looks like. I was conducting a security investigation." Mitchell cut her off, pulling out the cuffs. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you use it." The same woman who had called cops on everyone else was now being read her Miranda rights, standing in my shed surrounded by her own planted evidence. By morning, the whole neighborhood knew. The collapse. Stories poured out. Mrs. Patterson admitted Grace threatened her daycare. The Johnsons confessed they'd been paying hush money over their deck. Others came forward with blackmail tales stretching back years. The HOA board moved fast. Vote of no confidence. Grace removed permanently. David, the man she once used as her puppet, was appointed interim president. His first act: transparency rules oversight committees, limits on HOA power. Grace. She lost her home, her position, her freedom, facing charges for breaking and entering, evidence tampering, extortion, possession. The list went on. The woman who built her empire on control had lost everything. I stood there that night looking at the empty house across the street, realizing something simple. Final line. Fear only works until people decide to stop being afraid.